The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Boar's Head, premium meats, cheeses, and hummus. Boar's Head, compromise elsewhere.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
Is now warning.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
All right, here we go. Good morning. Good morning on an armchair quarterback Monday, an overreaction Monday. Week 1 in the books, college football. That was fun. How about them Rebs and those Dogs? We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app, and we're always powered by award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club and the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. We will be there throughout football season, and Dave Bartu will join me there in about a month. Looking forward to that. Bartu's 2 locks of the week were unbelievable, by the way. How about that Arizona call? Take Arizona in the points. Take Arizona and BYU in the under. How about that? We did. It worked out. You can hit us up on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. Twitter handle at BoBounds. And the text line is right there waiting for you, like a delicious omelet. 601-885-3776. Brought to you by Mississippi Ag. Manage your land with the John Deere tractor from Mississippi Ag. I've got Blake Mania with me, and I'm your host, Bo Bounds. I hope you had a great weekend. Rebs and Dogs are 1-0, and, they may have gone about it a little bit different way. I was in Starkville on Saturday, and Blake knows this. Even though Blake and I have only known each other for 3 years, when you spend this much time together, you get to know someone. And, of course, we talk a lot in the studio, outside of the show and so on. And, I guess I communicate with Blake more than anybody else other than Wendy. So, and some weeks more so with Blake than when you just depend on what's going on. But I just want y'all to know that, and Blake was blown away when I texted him this. Y'all know that I can leave a game in a heartbeat. It's
good or bad.
Good or bad. I mean, whoever's playing that I may be rooting for or want to win can be winning, and I can leave, and whoever's playing can be losing, and I can leave. I mean, if we're on the road and somebody mentions a great steakhouse, I'm like, let's go ahead and go to the bar and have a great beverage and watch the rest of the game. And then if we're meeting some people afterwards, we'll get a table for 8 and have one of those 3-hour dinners. So I stayed the whole game. I know that's insane. And I sat there in the fourth quarter in Starkville by myself. I was in one of those little loge boxes or whatever, and the 2 couples that I was with had left. And so I sat there and watched the game, and that was a crazy comeback. And I think, Blake, that what we've been talking about for a while when it comes to Ole Miss's offense and Mississippi State's offense and what the game is giving us today and where it's trending and what the analytics tell us and, all this stuff about red zone efficiency and explosive plays and quarterbacks and what they mean to the game. And do you have coaches that can, one, coach the quarterback and one are good play callers? I think you saw so much of that over the weekend of either what you have or don't have. But I will say this for Mississippi State fans who thought, this team's terrible and there's no point in dressing out the rest of the year and blah, blah, blah. I'll say this. If you didn't have the head coach that you had on Saturday and you were not a passing offense, you would have never had a chance to come back. And that's the reason why that was the biggest comeback in the history of your program, which is sad. The reason why is for 100 years, you have played 3 yards in a cloud of dust football on offense, and we've got to put everything on our defense. Our defense has to get every single stop for us to win 13-6 or whatever. And so as bad as it looked in the second and third quarter, and it looked bad, okay? And I've got plenty of time to get into that. All right. But as bad as it looked in the second and third quarter, you would not have had an opportunity to win that game if you didn't have Mike Leach as the head coach. And are they humming like the other school in the state on offense? They're not. I mean, Matt Corral is driving a Porsche. Will Rogers is driving a Toyota Camry. Let's just go ahead and lay it out. That's right. I'm right there. I mean, you look at Ole Miss, Corral's got an offensive line. He's got skilled people everywhere, and he is dynamite with the football. He's got the arm and the legs and everything else, and the accuracy and the offense that Kiffin and Levy have come up with. But I do want to really focus and emphasize the fact that, one, Will Rogers played with a lot of poise on Saturday in the fourth quarter as a young player who still shouldn't be playing this early and doesn't have all the pieces that I just referenced. Right? If you flipped Matt Corral on Mississippi State's team, although the offensive line is not that good, now that they have put together a nice collection, not saying that they're Ole Miss's offensive skill talent, but Calvin, Polk, Wally, Tulu, Marks, that is something that you haven't had either in forever or maybe even back to when you really didn't use all those players, like when Emory Ballard had John Bond, Michael Haddix, Marty McDowell, and Danny Knight, and a bunch of other guys. Now, back then, you didn't use those players. Glenn Young, you didn't use those players, okay? Wyndham was another running back, so on. But Ole Miss has, for the most part, always had a nice collection, if not a phenomenal collection, or unit of offensive skill players. And now Mississippi State has Calvin, Wally, and Polk, and some others. And Will played well in the fourth quarter. He held the ball too long at times during the game, and the offensive line let him down, a number of times. But you don't make that comeback if you're running the power spread. You don't, because you don't have enough time. And the reason why, that stunned me, that was the biggest comeback in program history. I mean, I've grown up with this. I know how bad Mississippi State has been on the offensive side of the football for the better part of 100 years. I know that they didn't, for whatever reason, never could find a coach to get it for the most part. I mean, Dan, don't get me wrong. Mullen did some good things on the offensive side of the football, but y'all know what I mean.
But even he didn't have it was Sherrill who had the largest comeback prior to this.
Yeah,
16
Auburn.
points in 98 or 97.
99 at Auburn, I was there. It was when our colleague Matt Wyatt threw the pass over the middle to Matthew Butler, I think it was. I was on the sideline. By the time the play ended, Sherrill was within 5 feet of me because he had walked down to the end zone, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I thought that was one sad, that was the biggest comeback. And then when I heard that this one was, I was like, and y'all wonder why John Cohen is trying to modernize the football program like he had to modernize. See, these aren't his fault that these things weren't modernized prior to his arrival.
They should have been done when he was a student.
Right.
Not when he
okay,
said,
so John was tasked with modernizing the baseball program, one as a coach, two as an AD. Because, again, the baseball program was run like it was 1974, and it was unacceptable. Nobody wanted to say it except me on the air years ago. The football program, Dan brought it out of the dark ages, but it was still, you know what I'm saying. And so this is where you are. So we're going to continue to talk dogs and Revs. How about them LSU Tigers showing up in Los Angeles? How about those sissy blue shirts over the weekend? Just means more out in the Pac-12, evidently. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Good morning. Welcome in. Luganville at 8:30. Brad Edwards, 9:30 on the Modelo guest line. This is WRKS 105.9 The Zone.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is powered by Breezy Oaks Ranch. For Mississippi-raised premium Wagyu beef and heritage pork shipped straight to your door, visit breezyoaksranch.com.
What's on the big board?
Well, congratulations to the sissy blue shirts out of UCLA over the weekend. Guys, this may not be working out for Eddie O and LSU. I don't know. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. If you take out the Joe Brady, Joe Brady year, but let's go Joe Burrow. If you take out the Joe Burrow year at LSU, Ogeron is 31-15. My question is, how many more losses does he have on the schedule this year? Knowing who he plays, you know, how does that look for you? And I don't want to. Well, yeah, it's an overreaction Tuesday. We do want to overreact to a certain extent. Speaking of, we want you to overreact. Mississippi Ag text line 601-885-3776. Boy, Jeff Levy made some money last night, didn't he? So Lane Train gets COVID. What did they call it? A special case or something?
It's the breakthrough. That's the new Delta variant.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
the biggest
breakthrough
bunch of
case.
nonsense I've ever heard in my life. Breakthrough case. Good Lord.
It broke through the vaccine. I think
Right,
that's what.
right. I understand. That was the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. Of course, so is 90-something% of the stuff around this thing. But, so Jeff Levy, Lane Train had COVID, had to sit out. Levy is the offensive coordinator, play caller, you know, but we all know Lane runs the deal. But Levy is very talented. We were the first in the state of Mississippi to understand what that hire meant and who he was. We already knew who he was and his tie to Baylor and that Baylor offense that started kind of wowing everybody with RG3 many years ago, right? And they tweaked it, added to it, over the last 12, 13, 14 years. Now, who's the coach that gave Art Briles his shot at coaching in Power 5? Oh, the irony. Mike Leach. Art Briles was a high school football coach in Texas. Mike Leach takes the Texas Tech job, realized that he needed a presence in high schools, hired 2 Texas high school football coaches. One of them was Art Briles. Jeff Levy is married to Art Briles' daughter. The rest is history. How about that? The offense that boat raced you last year in the Egg Bowl, got to give a lot of credit to Mike Leach on that. The offense that may boat race you in the Egg Bowl this year, Mike Leach drove that ship. It's crazy, the tie. But anyway, so I think Levy made a lot of money last night, Blake, when you look at it. And that offense is ginning. Look, Matt Corral's driving a Porsche. Will Rogers is driving a Toyota Camry. Now, Mississippi State does have a good, real, for them, probably the best collection of skill players they've ever had. Look, Jameer Calvin was doing things that you haven't had a player do.
Yep.
Chad Bumpus could do a little bit of that, but that offense was more zone read, power spread. Yes, you've had molds, but Jackie Sherrill didn't throw the football. So, I get that you've had some players, but Calvin and Wally and Polk and Tulu and some of those guys, and Malik Heath was suspended. That's probably the best, right? Wouldn't you say the most talented offensive skill players that you've had as far as wide receiver? And we didn't even have slot receivers years ago, but you know what I'm saying. Wide receivers and slot receivers. And
yeah.
Marks, is a heck of a player. He needs more touches. And then, Dylan Johnson's just going to have to get better. Dylan Johnson, Austin Williams, others, you can't turn the ball over. I don't care if you're a good possession receiver. You got to stop fumbling the football. And if you can't, then, all the other guys I just named need more reps. Live in the Bank Plus studio, Blake.
I was going to say, I know you say Marks needs more touches. He actually led the way with 9 receptions on Saturday. I think he totaled 21 touches.
21.
12 rushes, 9 receptions. Scored 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, well, he was there.
2 on the ground, 1 in the air.
Yeah, I mean, they pounded it in twice inside the 3 or something.
Yep, yeah. Which is, again, I love the people who get upset about, well, if Mullen was coaching, we would have run the ball and we never would have been down 20 points or whatever. Or blah, blah, blah.
We don't know.
Look,
Here's
Leach,
what we know.
Leach can run when he needs to.
No doubt. Leach, if you don't have a guy like that runs whatever. I mean, there's a lot of variations of of a passing offense. You don't even have the opportunity to win the game.
Correct. There's a reason.
And if you didn't have that skill talent, you wouldn't have had an opportunity to win the game.
I go back to what everyone always complained about with Dan Mullen is the irony that they're now complaining about the exact inverse of that with Leach.
Right.
Mullen could never beat anyone that was better than him outright, 100%. He struggled to overperform the more talented teams.
Never, but it didn't happen as often as, and I hate to tell you, it's not going to happen
consistently. I understand
in Starkville or Oxford, but go ahead.
Because teams are better. It takes special things to line up when they're when you're fighting the top 5 ranked teams in the country. But my point is like Leach's offense, just like we're going to talk about with Ole Miss, and as we look forward on their schedule after seeing what they did Monday night, that offense allows you to play above your talent level, above your pay grade, so to speak.
Or does it allow you to maximize
what you have?
What you have.
No, and that's my point. Like, it allows you to play above what your quote-unquote team talent level should say you play at. That offense does that. Mullen's offense doesn't. That's why when he's more talented, he can beat people, and it makes sense. But when you want to elevate and play above your talent level, all you have to do is look at Leach's career and then look at Baylor. When they were beating people, it was because they ran the most electric offense in the country. It wasn't because they pounded the rock and played Alabama light.
No, the reason why they got all over Oklahoma and Texas back then is because they were throwing up 40, 50, 60 points.
It's the reason Leach was able to win anything at Washington State or Texas Tech when they were the worst recruiter in those conferences each year.
Hey, does Matt Corral look like, I was hammered for having this. I mean, I didn't think this was a hot take or a stretch at all. Does Matt Corral look like the best quarterback in the SEC?
I don't know. JT Daniels did throw a completion or two. That game was 3-3, and Georgia fans were crowing like they scored 25 on Clemson and were boat racing them.
Oh, man.
If DJ Uiagalelei doesn't throw a pick six, the only touchdown of the game, they'd be playing right now. It would just be like 13-13, 12-12. They'd be kicking field goals.
Well, let me go back to what I asked. Is there any doubt
unequivocally
who is the best quarterback in the Southeastern Conference?
The question isn't, is Matt Corral the best quarterback in the SEC? The question is, will he be able to play his way onto the stage in New York?
It's a good question.
Because that's what it matters at the end of the day. I mean, if you are considering...
Where did Dak finish?
4th or 5th. He was just outside that list.
All right.
And Eli Manning kind of got hosed on that whole thing, too. I know he went, but Corral...
Jason White
with
from
Oklahoma
won it. That's the biggest nonsense I've ever heard.
He was transitioned into receiver in the NFL.
He was running the Mike Leach offense, and it is the reason why at Oklahoma he got to go. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I'm with you. I think Corral's going to give you your best chance to be back on that stage if you're Ole Miss. And really the only guy in conference that can affect you is Bryce Young, and I don't think that's because he's better than Matt Corral, but because he's if Corral's driving a Porsche, Bryce Young's driving a souped-up Lambo with NOS. You know what I mean? And it's not a shot at Ole Miss. It's just a whole different ball game over there in Tuscaloosa. But if you watched Rattler, Howell,
Sam Howell,
JT and DJ,
Spencer Howell, Spencer Rattler, like you said, JT Daniels. You just didn't see it.
No.
The Wisconsin QB.
Graham Mertz.
Yeah.
That game was 0-0 at halftime. Don't talk to me about that guy.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Hey, Other than Bama, does Ole Miss have the most explosive offense in the country? Mississippi Ag John Deere Tractor text line 601-885-3776. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Twitter handle @BoBounds. Shoot us a text. Shoot us a tweet. Twitter handle @BoBounds. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Your golf game starts with Edwin Watts Golf Shop.
Come on. Everyone ready?
This is the SEC Insider Hit. Presented by your local Farm Bureau Insurance Agent. Go local. Go with a home team.
All right. Good morning. Welcome in. Hope you're doing well. Man, what a weekend. Ole Miss with the big win last night over Louisville. U of L. It doesn't look like they have a good football team, but some of that was Ole Miss's offense and some of that was U of L. Mississippi State with a win over La Tech, much better than losing. For MSU fans, man, that'd have been a bad deal. Staring North Carolina State in the face in a game at Memphis, not really knowing who you are or what you are yet. Had someone tell me deep inside the program over the weekend, boy, this will land well, Blake. It'll also be taken out of context. I had someone deep inside the Mississippi State football program tell me over the weekend, you have no idea the harm Moorhead caused this program. You got an uphill battle. So, and they're not going off of Leach. Leach is going to get it done. It's a good thing you had Mike Leach. Here's a couple of things as we're going to bounce around on the Rebs and the Dogs and LSU losing and what the Alabama game meant, what the Georgia-Clemson game may mean here now, later, and some of the other things happening throughout the weekend. If you don't have Mike Leach or a Mike Leach-type coach in that game on Saturday, you lose. So you're 0-1, which is it's rare that you can it's doable, but it's rare you can come back from a G5 loss. It's just tough if you're in the SEC. It is really, really tough to do. I understand Freeze had one. I understand Mullen had one. A little bit different deal. You knew that they could win when they did it. When other coaches that we've had throughout history in Starkville and Oxford have lost a game where you're the overwhelming favorite, it's just rare that you can survive. Arkansas's, run coaches because of that, and so have other programs. But if you don't have a Mike Leach-type coach, you don't win that game because it gave you the ability to score 21 points in the fourth quarter. Usually for the better part of 100 years, Mississippi State hasn't scored 21 points in the whole game. Okay?
They didn't when Dan lost to South Alabama. For all the people who blew me up over the weekend about, well, Dan never would have been down to La Tech. Okay. He lost to South Alabama. Stop. You guys are crazy.
Right. So Leach had, because of who he is and what they can run, and again, it's not where they want it to be. They're in a Toyota Camry, trying to get to a Ram truck, trying to get to a deal. They're trying to get better. But the bottom line is you're down by 20 in the fourth quarter, and you have the ability to come back and win the game. And look, second, third quarter was a debacle, and both units, well, all three, I'm sorry.
What happened to Zach Arnett's unit?
Yeah, well, we can get into that here in a second because Mississippi State fans like to harp on the fact that Ole Miss isn't good on defense. You may want to back up a little bit at the water cooler this morning on that one.
Yeah.
Or kind of go ahead and get your little honey bun or cinnamon rolls or whatever they got laid out at work. kind of skirt through that and go ahead and get in the office and lock in to, whatever work project, first thing you have to do this morning type stuff. Well, the first thing you have to do is listen to our show because that makes you a better, American and so on. But so we know that. We know that if you and by the way, here's what I heard. This was the chatter for several minutes in the game. Got to replace Will Rogers. Do you remember last year when Matt Corral threw 5 picks at Arkansas and they asked Lane about pulling him? And he almost laughed.
Why?
You know why? Because Lane, even though he doesn't have as many games as Leach under his belt, has enough to know. And plus, he's at practice every day. That guy right there, that guy that's throwing all those picks, he gives me the best chance to still win, to still drive the ball down the field and score. Will Rogers showed an enormous amount of poise, right? And grit and will when no pun intended, when everything was going against him.
Correct.
To come back and and again, he's playing too early. His offensive line is below average. I think I'm being kind there. And, La Tech had 19 transfers and some guys that could play. And boy, did I miss on what La Tech was. They're not great. But we know over the years, because they beat Mississippi State and Ole Miss, right, and other Power 5 teams, we know they've been a salty G5 program that gets good athletes in the Sun Belt and have sent players to the NFL. I slept on what Sonny Dykes had done, and you got to give them – I'm sorry, Skip Holtz. I'm mixing up the two sons of
legends.
Yeah, of coaches that coach. My bad. So that's that. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go to favrates.com. That's FAVE. If you want to save on your auto and home insurance. Favrates.com, Farm Bureau Insurance. Good morning. Welcome in. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. So that's that. 35-34. A win's a win. Can you imagine how bad you'd feel this morning if you'd lost? Or, you would not have the ability to find enough wins to go to a bowl either.
No. You still are going to have some work to do because there are some tough games on the schedule. But I think, as you've pointed out, you've got look, Will Rogers was 39 of 47. Did he make a bad throw on the pick six? Absolutely. You can't ever make that throw. But as Leach talked about,
but quarterbacks make.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, for people who want to point out the negative, I understand there are some negatives. Yeah. He was 39 of 47. That's 83%. He threw for 370 and 3 touchdowns, and he orchestrated I think 11 straight pass completion to come back in the fourth quarter.
Is that good?
It's all right. It's mediocre. As Leach said, he still doesn't look comfortable yet. He's still got to get settled in behind the offensive line because he panicked it a couple times, but when you're getting hit like water through a sieve every time you snap the ball,
well,
you're
he did hold
panic.
the ball. All right, so David Cutcliffe told us years ago that you got to get the ball out of your hand in 2.5 seconds. And so Will is still young. He is a true sophomore. He's not even legal to drink. And he is going through this whole transformation with Leach.
Yep.
And he shouldn't have played last year, and he shouldn't play this year, but you are where you are. And Matt Corral was not ready, in his first year or second year either. And neither are many, many, many quarterbacks, throughout the SEC. Emory Jones looks like he could lose his job to Anthony Richardson at Florida.
He should lose his job to Anthony Richardson. And
Emory's been there for 3 years. And we'll see how that looks a little bit later. And I don't know what LSU's going to do at QB. We know what Ole Miss has. They have the number 1 best quarterback in the Southeastern Conference. I told y'all it wasn't close. People who thought JT Daniels was over Matt Corral. I could go get some first graders over here at the school behind us, and they could figure, put on the tape for 5 minutes, and then, all right, guys, tell me who's the best, and they would obviously go with Matt Corral. It's like a big gap. It's Matt Corral, big gap, and then it's not JT Daniels. Then you could argue. I mean, you could argue Bryce Young, but he's got all these people around him.
The problem is he's going to put up incredible numbers because of what they're in.
Yeah, so would Will Rogers.
Matt Corral would win there. JT Daniels would look better at Alabama. Like, they all would look better at Alabama.
Sure.
I love that you said, I don't know what LSU's going to do at quarterback, and CWR goes, don't worry, neither does LSU.
Well, my point is Miles Brennan is hurt, and he may not be back till October-ish. And so I don't know what they're going to do at the quarterback
Does it matter
position.
if you run the offense poorly?
Well, that's with anybody, no.
Right? Exactly.
No. So, but they've got 2 cakewalks, you would think, the next 2 weeks in McNeese State and Central Michigan. All right. Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. I mean, look, the talk of the state's Matt Corral in the offense. Kiffin had COVID, didn't make the trip. They didn't miss a beat. Jeff Levy's fantastic OC. Is the Ole Miss defense improved? Yes. How much? I don't know yet. I know we want all the answers after the game, week 1. Look, they made Louisville look terrible. And it doesn't look like U of L is that good. They lost their 3 playmakers from last year. One's in the NFL, but still you would think you would look better against that Ole Miss defense. I mean, they made that Chance kid that is it Chance Campbell?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
That transferred in look like Ray Lewis last night.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he's going to look like that against, some of the other teams that they'll face. But they look better. I'm not going to go crazy, though. They're not going to be tested this weekend, so they could dominate Austin Peay. Now, they got Tulane in 2 weeks.
That's interesting.
And I didn't think that was interesting, and I don't expect Ole Miss to lose the game. But Tulane played really good football against Oklahoma on Saturday, and they lost 40-35 in a week where they were displaced because of Hurricane Ida. That game was supposed to be in New Orleans on Tulane's campus in their pretty new stadium that they built. Instead, it was in Norman, Oklahoma. Like I said, they're all living out of suitcases. And, their whole life was disrupted and displaced because of the hurricane. And yet, Oklahoma got up big during the game, and Tulane comes marching back and makes that one heck of a ball game. Now, we know that Willie Fritz can coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us ask the question, why is he still there? I think it's because he does run somewhat of a funky offense, and he's older, and everybody wants the new 33-year-old coach. Either the Lincoln Riley of college football or the Sean McVay with the L.A. Rams of the NFL. But that could be a little more intriguing than I thought for Ole Miss going into their bye week before they play Bama. So we'll see. Lane Train should be back this week. Again, you play Austin Peay. That could be like 83-6. So I don't know, what all you think we're going to do with that game. The focus this week will be on Mississippi State hosting North Carolina State. I think the natural reaction is to say that NC State comes in, wins big, but we'll see. We'll see if they can get some things together and look more like they did in the fourth quarter than they did in the second, third. And I didn't think they looked that great in the first, by the way. I'm talking about Mississippi State.
Yes.
I know that they were up until the last few seconds of the first quarter when La Tech went for the explosive play. But now I will say on Zach Arnett's defense, those 2 explosive plays in the first half killed them.
Mm-hmm.
And, they may still be salty. I tried to tell you, though, that they weren't going to be, like, really good. Remember, I've been referring to them as a salty defense, not by any stretch even, that's not fair what they were in 2018, but, like, some of their other defenses under Mullen that were, like, good.
Yeah. They're not top 25, let's put it that way.
Well, and they don't have a Fletcher Cox, Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons type player.
I made the argument they don't even have a Bernardrick McKinney or Preston Smith level player who's the sub-tier below those guys. I mean, show me. Aaron Brule didn't show it this weekend. You lost Jordan
what
Davis.
Happened to him? he just didn't look like you expected him to play.
Who's going to be
played
that
so well last year?
Who's going to be that defensive lineman that can step up and be a game wrecker, a drive stopper?
I don't think they have him.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, I don't know.
No, I do know.
Yeah,
they don't. They don't have a Jeffrey Simmons, Fletcher Cox, Chris Jones type player. So and that's where you got to give Matt Luke credit. Matt Luke and Jacob Peeler and a lot of those guys. Luke's not a head coach at the Power 5 level, but man, that guy's love and commitment to Ole Miss. And I don't know. Matt may have worked 18 hours a day and spent a chunk of that recruiting. But Matt's an overachieving grinder, and he made sure to leave. He left Lane Kiffin some serious talent on the offensive side of the football, and give Lane credit. He is taking advantage of it because he's so good at running an offense and as a play caller. Yeah. And boy, if you're not a play caller, look at LSU. What does play calling mean now at the high school level, college level, and NFL level? If you're a really good play caller, we didn't ever talk about that for years.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of it was because everything was so basic in the world of football, right?
Well, everyone would call the same plays.
Right.
For the majority of the history of football, it was run right, run left, play action right, play action left.
Right.
And that was all you had.
Right.
And what St. Louis did originally with the Greatest Show on Turf to take it to a national level. I know Fouts did a little bit, and you had BYU and some West Coast stuff, but like when St. Louis did what they did and took it to the NFL level and really showed how explosive offense dominates great defense, it changed the narrative for the rest of football. And I think that's what you see. I mean, look, Ole Miss under Nutt was good, under Orgeron was bad, but you look at what they've turned into under a Freeze/Longo/Kiffin offense, and we're talking about can they be second in the West, right?
Right. Remember, I asked Luganville that. Could Ole Miss be second in the West? I know it's just week one, and we want all the answers today, and we don't have them. Why can't, after watching what played out this weekend, why can't Ole Miss be
LSU
in the strong discussion for second in the West? I know Auburn hung 60 on, was it Akron? But whatever.
That doesn't teach. And A&M you didn't learn anything about either.
Right.
But what you did learn about is LSU. And I think that game told us two things. One, Orgeron is who we've always said he was. Orgeron is not the one season he was successful. He's the 30 seasons he was unsuccessful. So we know that. And secondly, Chip Kelly woke up out on the West Coast.
Well, they added a ton of transfers that worked for them, and they had their quarterback back, and they looked like an SEC. I never thought I would say this about a UCLA team. Like a Southern Cal team, I thought I would. But a UCLA team that looked like a SEC team as far as physicality and speed was unbelievable. LSU's in trouble. It's just a matter of when, not if, for Orgeron. It's over. It's it's just a matter of how this all plays out. But it could be it could be wild. So go ahead and jump on, buckle up, and check it out. We've got some audio from Coach Leach about players quitting. And Leach there's a chapter in his book that talks about this in Swing Your Sword. A lot of people think he's like soft or not as engaged because he doesn't get very emotional on the sideline. He's one tough SOB as a coach. This is what he said about players quitting.
For the other thing, we went through a period in the third period where, some guys quit. And we're going to address that. We're going to look at that on film because if a guy quits, that's coaching. Either you got to coach him different or you need a different guy. And so we got to adjust that.
Okay. I don't know how much y'all have kind of picked up on Leach. And I know he doesn't give a lot of emotion in his tone. He is royally PO'd.
Oh, he's insanely furious.
Okay. I know he's not going to get in there and give you a big, raise his voice and get very intense and have his blood vessels coming out of his, temples and so on. That is one mad dude. And I heard Sunday's practice, usually Sunday's just kind of walk-through-ish type deal. I mean, you get them out there, move them around a little bit to move their blood and so on. But
he boiled their blood.
I heard it got serious, and I expect today to be pretty darn intense in Starkville, Mississippi. This is Leach talking about team panic after starting strong.
We went out there, and I think we started pretty good, started the game pretty good. Okay, then we got up on them, 2 touchdowns. We felt like, well, this is going to be easy. And so then I think there's some of those guys out there that took their foot off the throttle and, thought they'd start some screwy victory lap or something stupid like that, which can you imagine doing that against La Tech, a team that dumps players in the NFL every year and has upset team after team after team, one after the next, and is one of the most brutal teams on earth to play over history. And then, but nevertheless, we did that. Yeah. So then it was like, after we took the foot off the throttle, then I think we panicked. And it was team-wide. It wasn't a specific side of the ball. I think it was team-wide. And then we panicked. And then as we panicked, we tried to make too much happen, and then the things just blew up in our face.
Accurate.
That guy. Yeah, I think it'll be like August 15th practices this week in Starkville when usually you're dialing it back. I think he's going to find out he's going to continue to find out who wants to play. You may have a little more attrition, Mississippi State fans. Live in the Bank Plus studio, the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Now, Jameer Calvin is a transfer from Washington State, and this kid sounds like Mike Leach. And we've got some audio here, but I want to talk about he talks about Will Rogers, the quarterback, in that performance. For our listeners, Calvin transferred in from Washington State. So he knows all about what Leach and all those offensive coaches want and expect. Most of the guys playing don't, okay? I mean, your offensive line is still super young, doesn't have the starts, and doesn't have the starts in the air raid. But this is Calvin, the transfer from Washington State, who looked great on Saturday. This is what he had to say about Will Rogers.
The way he kept his composure, he didn't fold at all. He didn't shake. He stayed the same person the whole entire game, no matter what was going on. He stayed real level-headed, and he continued to fight and play and led us to victory.
What's that mean for you guys when you have a quarterback like that can stay composed and kind of lead the offense when things aren't going right?
It means a lot, and your quarterback and your leader, that's what you really need to be a great team. Without that, we wouldn't have won this game.
All right, so that's Jameer Calvin, the transfer from Washington State, who had a really big day on Saturday for Mississippi State, talking about Will Rogers. This is what he had to say about Leach and the meeting at the end of the third quarter when everything's burning down around them and they're down by 20 or whatever it was. This is Calvin on Leach's speech to the team.
He was just talking about how we're a better team than what we were playing like. We were just making mistakes. We were shooting ourselves in the foot. They weren't beating us. We were beating ourselves. So we just need to lock in, make plays, and, just be consistent with what we were doing.
All right. So that's they got a good one in Calvin and Polk, the two transfers from the Pac-12. Calvin from Washington State, Polk from Cal, Berkeley. And so there you go. Ole Miss and Bama, Blake, have the best offenses in the Southeastern Conference. And then Matt Corral's the best quarterback in the SEC. Is he the best in the country? I don't know. Tom Luganville will join us at 8:30. Brad Edwards, who spent 25 years at ESPN, will join us at 9:30 today. We're looking forward to that. Luganville on Ole Miss and Louisville at 8:30. Brad Edwards on the SEC at 9:30. Both will join us on the Modelo guest line. You're listening Out of Bounds. Brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent.